3 of 20 from the field.
Minnesota needed some.
This right here is a problem. You see, dating back to the beginning of time, the NBA has had its darlings. By that, I mean the players that the NBA seems to have a soft spot for, whether it's in the eyes of the media, the coaches, or even the officials. It's been a common thing for decades that the NBA's best superstars have seemingly gotten some phantom and ticky-tack calls. In today's league, it seems to be even more divided than ever before, with players playing to foul bait, as people say, to get extra trips to the line. These superstars are facing tons of criticism for the unethical basketball being played, and some viewers are disgusted by what they're seeing, and some even blame this for the decrease in the league's popularity and viewership. Guys such as Gilgeous-Alexander, Trae Young, Jalen Brunson, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, and many more have been the face of this whole superstar whistle and foul baiting narrative going around the NBA. Who is truly to blame for this change in the NBA, and why has the league not taken a stand against it? Is there a true solution to fix it, or will the superstars always get the golden whistle? Hello everyone, I'm Mason, and let's discover the truth about the NBA's superstar whistle. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a new video. Thank you very, very much. That burp was foul. Now, going back in our little NBA time machine, we can go back and see that Michael Jordan, especially in his prime, was one of the beginnings of the narrative of the superstar whistle. Even Larry Bird and Magic Johnson had joked,
"You can't get too close to Michael, it's a foul."
And the thing is, they weren't exactly wrong. Michael Jordan did shoot a lot of free throws, not an overly insane amount compared to other players in history, but he did shoot quite a few, and he did get some calls that were a little more favorable to him that other players may not have gotten. You can find a couple compilations on YouTube of Michael Jordan getting a couple of weak foul calls, and these are 3, 4, 5-minute compilations at a time of him just trying to drive and someone making light marginal contact and they blow the whistle. Michael Jordan also did get killed a couple times at the rim, especially when he was going against teams like the Bad Boy Pistons or even their rival New York Knicks. They would knock him, flatten him to the ground, and it would just be a simple foul call because they didn't have flagrants back then. The real truth behind the superstar whistle is it kind of makes sense. Superstars are going to be the hardest players to guard on the court. When they're driving, you're going to do everything in your power to stop them. The officials are going to be keeping a very keen eye on every move the defender makes just to see what they do and be very honed in on it. This isn't just because the player is a superstar, they get favorable calls to give them more points, bring up their averages. It's not just that. It's also that when these guys are getting trips to the line, think of a guy like Gilgeous-Alexander in today's NBA. He's very shifty, quick, very good change of pace. He's very hard to keep up with. So when the official is watching a guy like him, they're keeping an eye on every move that the defender makes to make sure that he's not doing anything excessive to keep Shea from getting to his spots. We've seen in the past of guys in interviews such as Kobe Bryant talking about on defense, sometimes when a guy was driving, they would hook their arm underneath the other player's offhand to try to keep them from getting a shot up, that they would pin their arm to their body. A guy like Gilgeous-Alexander, if you could get away with that, why would you not try to? He's a guy that's going to give you 30 to 35 points on any given night. Also, officials are extra watching out for things like that. At the end of the day, the narrative is always going to be whatever you make it up to be for your personal self. If you have a bias against or for a certain player, then you're not going to see it any type of way. Me personally, I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan. I'm a big Gilgeous-Alexander fan. I've seen other guys who shoot a lot of free throws. I've seen Luka Doncic. I've seen Jalen Brunson in the playoffs last year. I've seen Joel Embiid. I've seen Giannis. I've seen all these guys shoot a lot of free throws, and there is one common denominator. They are very, very good at studying the tendencies of the defenders. When a guy like Joel Embiid has the ball in the triple threat position and he makes a slight jab step move, the defender may put his hand out, and that's all it takes for Joel to go up with the shot. The hand would hit him on the wrist or the arm on the way up, and they would call the foul. Now, this is the unethical part of it, as the foul baiting does get a little much at times with players like Embiid, SGA, and a couple of other guys that we've already mentioned. But that's just the state of today's game. People are hunting to get these extra fouls because if they're going to give you a light call like that, why would you not abuse it? It does say something about the players today, but it also says something about the way the game's officiated. We've seen countless times that guys like SGA, Luka Doncic will pump fake. When the defender jumps up in the air, they'll step forward and throw their body into the defender a little bit, and it'll be a foul because the defender is on their way down and it's unavoidable to make that contact. So what can the NBA actually do to change this problem? They can stop with some of these ticky-tack foul calls that they're giving to just superstars. Part of it is just knowing how to sell a foul call. When contact's initiated, they'll yell, they'll do something to help get them that whistle, which that's something that we see at all levels of the game. I mean, when someone would get hit, they yell because obviously that helps sell the foul call. The official is going to think twice about whether or not you got hit. And a lot of times that can be very rewarding. At the same time, as I do see it from a fan's perspective, why are these guys getting the easiest foul calls that we've ever seen, taking advantage of it and foul baiting and playing some very unethical basketball? I don't want to blame someone specifically, but I will say that James Harden was a pretty good proponent of the foul baiting ideology in the NBA. He would really practice that rip through on defenders, and especially when he was going to drive, he would always find a way to either hook your arm or something just to get that extra contact. But we go back and we see guys like Kobe Bryant who would pump fake, get you in the air and jump up, do the same thing, just not as exaggerated as today's players, obviously. But even Kevin Durant, he did the rip through a ton when he was with Oklahoma City. We have always seen guys take advantage of the whistle in the NBA. So when it all boils down, is the superstar whistle a real thing in the NBA? The answer is definitely. It is a real thing in the NBA. They're going to make sure that you get your trips to the line, whether they're rightfully deserved or not. However, they are also going to be watching that player to make sure that you don't make any sort of excessive contact to try to stop them. Whether you do or not, that's up to the official. The biggest problem with what the superstar whistle brings to the game is when players know that they're going to get called for a light foul, sometimes they might go a little overboard to try to make sure the guy doesn't make the bucket. Just as we saw back in the day, people will always preach, if you're gonna foul the guy, at least make sure he doesn't make the shot. And well, we've seen a couple times where that will get taken to the extreme, and some of these superstars will get absolutely taken out WWE style in the process. We'll see at times that a guy like gilgeous-alexander, heck, even Anthony Edwards, when they initiate the contact with the defender was in a legal guarding position. They will throw themselves into the defender. When they go up for the layup, they'll fall to the ground and yell, and then boom, foul call. That's always going to be the case, and we've seen that. If you go back 10 years ago, we saw guys like LeBron, Kobe, Kevin Durant getting all these foul calls on a consistent basis, or Dwayne Wade was a guy that was very good at this as well. You can't really tell in a fast-paced scenario if they're getting thrown to the ground, then they're going to be upset if you don't call the foul. If you do call the foul, then the defender is going to be upset because he might not have touched him. So either way, the official is just kind of put into a bad scenario when trying to officiate these star players. Sometimes they might get overly upset about some very light marginal contacts because that's a whistle they might be so used to getting. All right, real quick, time to crack open this drink. Not sponsored, but Celsius Retro Vibe. It's a rainbow sherbet, so we're gonna see if this is any good. You know what? That's actually pretty solid. I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. It tastes literally just like ice cream. Sponsor me, Celsius. Thank you. Now, the hardest part was seeing this as a casual viewer of the NBA. If you're a guy that hates Joel Embiid, and the night he's on national TV playing against your favorite Indiana Pacers, it's going to be a problem when he shoots 18 free throws that game, because it's hard to physically grasp how many times they can actually make contact with a guy and send him to the free throw line. And well, if you really go back and watch some of the games of these guys who have shot 20 plus free throws in a game, a lot of times if they shoot 20 free throws exactly, have 10 trips to the line, I would say about 7 to 8 of them are legit, with about 1 or 2 left being for those superstar calls. And while the superstar whistle may be only talked about on the offensive side, there is also a little bit of a defensive superstar whistle. We've seen times where a guy who is known with a reputation to be a very good defender, such as a Drew Holiday, a Lou Dort, and other guys like this, and especially perimeter defenders, when they're being a little overly aggressive and physical on the perimeter, they're not going to be called for a foul on this just because of their reputation as a defender. Where a guy like Lou Dort, me being a Thunder fan, again, I see this all the time. He will be on the guy like a backpack. He will somehow not get called for it, and the Thunder will force a turnover on it. If you were to sub in a guy like Cade Cunningham instead, while being a very good star player, does not have the defensive superstar narrative behind him, he's going to get called for that foul more frequently than a guy like Lu Dort. I do think that the superstar whistle exists, but it kind of goes on both sides of the ball. They may also have times where they'll get a lot more arm than ball, and they're not going to get called for it because the officials know what they're capable of on the defensive side of the ball. Similar to how on the offensive side, if you are very good at drawing contact, even if there wasn't much contact, they're just going to assume that, oh, well, he was fouled. We've also seen guys that aren't exactly superstars that still get a pretty solid whistle. A very good example of this is Austin Reeves, who considerably is not exactly a superstar. He is a very talented and good player, but he's not exactly in the realm of a superstar. And with him, if you watch his game, sometimes he does get a couple of questionable superstar calls. Obviously, it's a good conversation to have. Where exactly is that coming from? Well, I think part of it is also he is very good at drawing those fouls, letting the ref know, obviously, when there's contact, but he does that little yell that every player does. But again, he is very good at drawing and finding that contact. I do think there is a small tax to those fouls also because he does play in Los Angeles, and again, the Lakers are a team that does shoot a lot of free throws, and they do attack the basket a ton. We all know the Lakers are not a very good three-point shooting team, so being able to get to the line and also being able to dominate their way into the paint is a very big part of their offensive success. It is hard to gauge if he really does get any sort of special whistle, but at the end of the day, there are also players like him who love to try to attack the basket and attack against a defender. Whether or not you're a superstar, you are always going to get some calls, even if there is marginal contact. At the end of the day, it's up to the officials' discrepancy of whether or not it is a foul. Now, on the inverse of this, there's also guys that don't get much of a whistle at all, one of them being notably Stephen Curry. He is a guy that also plays a lot on the perimeter and shoots a lot of three-point shots. He's not going to attempt as many total free throws throughout the game because he does not attack the basket as much. And because of this, the times when he does get hacked and thrown to the ground and there's nothing, that's the hardest to stomach, because if he plays in a game, only drives 5 times, and 2 of the times that happens and no call, it looks like he's getting killed every possession and they're not doing anything about it. But on top of this, when Steph Curry actually does drive to the basket and does find that contact, it's still a question to this day of why he actually doesn't get a great whistle even when he is driving. We just saw him put up 56 points against the Orlando Magic, and he shot 12 free throws in this game. And when I tell you that I was shocked on some of the foul calls that he got, in normal games they wouldn't give them to him even though they were fouls. There was a couple times when I was like, he's not going to get that call. Even though he's getting hacked, sometimes they just don't give him the benefit of the doubt, even though he is one of the biggest stars of our game. What do you think about the superstar whistle in today's NBA? Do you think there's a way they can really crack down on this foul baiting, unethical basketball that people are discussing today? Or do you think it's just kind of a little bit overblown? Me personally, I think it's a little bit in between. I think people do over exaggerate it a little bit because it's like these guys aren't shooting 40 free throws a game, but also there is times where it's like, okay, we get it. You can go find contact. You can initiate contact. You can find a foul. We understand, but you don't have to try to get a foul call every possession. I think there's a little bit of an imbalance there, though. I do think they should crack down on it a little bit just to kind of see what that does for the casual viewers of the game. Make sure to leave a like on today's video and subscribe if you did not already. I appreciate you guys all staying to the end of this video. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, see you next time, cuh.